deep in the night of Sunday, 9 o'clock.
My bedtime is gone. It's probably not the depth of the night for a lot of people.
Well, it's just the beginning of the night for me.
I know, yeah, just starting out. I'm already winding down for the last 2.5 hours. I'm just waiting for going to bed. But Assalamu alaikum everybody, welcome to the Barefoot Marriage Show. And today we have a very interesting topic as usual. We have a new topic. Last 2 weeks we have been discussing threats to marriage. So if you haven't seen our video, you can go back to our pages and you can have a look, or our YouTube. And today we are talking about emotional responsibility. And how did we come up with this topic?
I don't know. Emotional responsibility, what do you understand by that? Do you feel emotionally responsible for your own emotions? And do you take responsibility for the emotional outbursts, emotional feelings as you may have, or any emotions? Emotional responsibility, I understand it to be somebody who is emotionally responsible, is able to take responsibility for their own emotions, and they of course somehow know how to manage their own emotions and the emotions of their spouse. That's what I understand by emotional responsibility.
It's very easy to say this, isn't it? But it's so difficult to practice.
Of course.
So we are talking about hard topics usually, the things that look very, very simple and very easy in theory, but we are talking about some practical implications of what it could look like.
So correct. If you're awake and watching us at 9 o'clock in the evening on a Sunday, just the last Sunday of January actually, February is going to be on us in 2 days. Well, if you are watching, why don't you give us a bell, give us a call, or in fact, more specifically, say hello to us on our screen. We will see your messages and we'll feel perked up and excited that you're watching our program. How emotionally responsible do you feel you are?
And what does it mean for you to be emotionally responsible?
Correct. We already have Rahma Rafia Beg who says, Salamu alaikum. Wa alaikum assalam, Rahma. Thank you very much for being so prompt and one of the first, actually the first one to respond. Abu Zafar Muhammad says, Salamu alaikum, Sheikh Ajmal and family members. Indeed, he's talking about yourself, of course. May Allah bless you for your salams, and may Allah give you all the blessings and His grace in return. Wa alaikum assalam, as we say. Now, what do you understand by emotional responsibility? Do you understand it? Do you find excitement in knowing your emotions? Do you find excitement in knowing that you're being responsible? Or are you one of those irresponsible persons who has no control of their emotions? They're all over the place.
Or maybe a bit of both. Like some days you are really responsible and other days not so much. And what does it determine how you behave, what you do, how you speak, how you respond? What are the determining factors in your life?
What triggers
you?
Yes. What triggers your emotions? Muhammad Rahim Khan says, Salamu alaikum wa alaikum assalam. Abu Zafar says, Ameen, thank you. Question to you, are you emotionally responsible? That's a very simple, direct question to you all. Are you emotionally responsible? When I ask you this question, I mean something specific. What do I mean by that? I mean, do you know your own emotions? Do you know how to take responsibility for your own emotions, positive or negative? Do you know how to manage your own emotions? That's what we call a responsible person, an emotionally responsible person. Are you? What about your spouse? Do you think your spouse is emotionally responsible? Are they able to manage their own emotions? And how do they react to your emotions? Or how do you react to their emotions? Emotional responsibility, a massive topic. What do you say? What do you say? Give us a message, inshallah. Rahma Rafia Beg has already said, does this question apply to single people? Of course it does.
Yes, it does. It's a very good question actually, but it does, because we learn emotional responsibility in relationships the most. But we all have relationships. We have relationship with our parents, with our siblings, we have relationship with friends and colleagues, and we need to learn how to be responsible for what comes out of our mouth, why it's the way it's coming out, what's the impact, how other people receive how we behave, and how we can control, and not just control, I guess it's about monitoring and modifying. Actually, there are 3 things that we really do with emotions, is that we modify them, we regulate them, and we understand them.
Okay. And for single persons, if you're watching our program, you learn emotions at home by the way you interact with your family, your mom and your dad and your siblings. That's where you learn emotions. If you don't know how to manage your emotions with your siblings or your parents or your family members, extended family members, they may be uncles, aunts, cousins, it is very likely that you'll be troubled, and you will have troubles having relationship with other people and be able to be responsible for your own emotions with others. So for example, did you learn how to manage your anger? Did you learn how to manage your happiness, sadness, surprises? Did you learn how to manage your grief? Did you learn how to manage your basic emotions? There are 6 or 7. If you include love, will be the 7th one. Do you know and can you take responsibility for your emotions? Okay, let's give you a good example. When I'm angry, how do I react to my anger? Do I blame somebody else for becoming angry? Or do I take responsibility for my anger first? It's an important question. I think all of us have a problem with managing our anger. All of us. Some more, some less, of course. That's human. So the primary question I'm asking, ask yourself, how well do I manage my anger? How well do I take responsibility for my anger? What are my triggers? What are my reactions? What is the effect of my anger on my spouse? Maybe you can expand on this a bit more.
No, I'm just thinking about all the times and all the different periods in our life where we were learning these things on literally in our skin, because this is something that, we don't get educated. Again, this is a topic, a theme, a subject that we don't study at school. Everyone assumes that we just learn these things. Our parents don't give us the adequate education about emotions. I remember when our daughter was about 5 and she was going through a really angry phase.
3 or 4, I think.
No, she was about 5, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, she was about 5. And she was very, very angry all the time. We didn't know for what reason. And we went to see some friends. We stayed with them. And friends were asking us, why is your daughter so angry? What is this anger outburst all the time? And we went to Sweden, I remember, to see some friends. And they said, why can you just not speak with peace? And it's a very, it's a very interesting as a parent to watch this, but it's also reflecting on your own life. How did we learn how to manage anger? Did we have a blind spot? Because I believe that about emotions we mainly have blind spots, and we just kind of get married and we assume that it will work out. We chisel each other out, but I think that's true. But if we are not conscious of how we are doing it, we are actually passing it down to our children.
So if you're not competent on your own emotions, it's very likely that you impact others in an incompetent way too. Emotional competence is a very important thing. We've got a big massive message there. Muhammad Rahim Khan says, you are responsible for your own feelings and reactions, and they are provoked by your thoughts. The attitude you have formed, the habits and beliefs you no longer question. This is the principle of emotional responsibility. You are largely responsible for the way you feel and act. 100% correct. Are you responsible for your own emotions? Ask yourself this question. I often see couples outbursts with one another out of anger, out of sadness, or people don't know how to manage happiness. People don't know how to manage or be responsible for the good feelings that they have. They always prefer the sad and sorrow feelings. They don't like to feel the goodness that comes with. Emotional responsibility means you know how those feel and you take responsibility for yourself. I'm feeling happy. Well, be happy about it. Why do you have to be miserable? You're feeling sad. Embrace the sadness. Don't wallow in it. Embrace it. Accept it. Rationalize it. Make sure you go through the process of feeling it and then move on.
I think let's start off with something that I think a lot of people probably are curious about is that how do we develop, first of all, awareness around our emotions.
Okay.
And secondly, because the way I look at it, I think emotions are a range, and we operate in a very limited scope. We know maybe 6 or 7, but there are 400 words for emotions only, and there are colors and there are different shades of it, and there's for anger there are so many other words that we could use, but these are all different categories and they fall into different intensity. So there's a lot more what I in my profession we call it, it's more granular. Emotions aren't just this or that. Sometimes you feel at the same time you feel the same 2 different kinds or 3 different kinds of emotions about the same thing, and you don't really know why am I feeling extremely happy and really angry at the same time, and then there's something else. So there's a combination. It's like a cocktail.
I've never felt like that.
You don't. I have very ambiguous feelings about things. Like, on the one hand, I love something so much, and on the other hand, I'm so irritated I could just suffocate it, or I could kill it.
I can never share that experience.
Oh, you can't?
No.
Oh,
I have a very, very binary feelings. I'm either angry, I'm either happy, I'm either sad, I'm in one of those emotions.
That's fine, but even when you're angry, anger has so many different steps. It starts with irritation, frustration, irritation, annoyance. You know, you go through.
Yeah, but all of those feelings are associated with anger. I don't feel anger and happiness at the same time.
Okay.
I never feel sad and happy at the same time. I am separated by my emotions. We're all different. We have to accept that, right? So being responsible is about not blaming somebody else.
No, but let me finish the thought that I started.
Go ahead, sorry.
So the emotions are a range, and even if when we get to know our own emotions, you will meet somebody who will have a completely different emotional range.
Right.
And you will have to find not just the fine-tuning of your own, but you have to fine-tune your together language, together emotions, how you react to certain things. So you have to work out a way that it's not just about us necessarily, but I think for me the word responsible, so how do we learn responsibility? In the bigger context, responsibility means I am doing something and I have to watch the impact on that on me, but I also need to watch the impact on other people.
Maybe.
It's not just it's not just about someone else is triggering me and how am I going to respond. That's only, I think it's one side of the story. It's actually a lot more complicated. How am I going to see the impact? And I think this is where couples get it wrong a lot of the times, is that they keep saying the things, they talk and talk, and they don't think there is a particular impact, and they keep badgering about the same thing until it becomes abuse.
Yeah. So your emotions and uncontrolled emotions, unchecked emotions can become abusive. You can be emotionally abusive to one another, you know, using your anger to control the other person, using your love to smother the other person, using your sadness to blackmail the other person, using your happiness as a tool to perhaps suppress the realities of what's going on in the relationship. Emotional responsibility means you are fully aware of the fact that you are the one who is responsible for your feelings, and nobody else has to pay a price because of your feelings, and you have no right to abuse anybody because of the way you feel. You have the right to express, of course you have, but it does not give you the license to abuse. So for example, when couple are having an argument, if one of them are angry and lashes out on the other one using verbal language, verbally abusive words, swear words, nasty words, deriding words, language that are not acceptable, I would say that's abuse. You are actually moving away from being emotionally responsible. Take a rein and say, you know, I'm not going to shout and scream at my spouse using foul language. I'm just going to say, I'm not happy about X, Y, and Z. When I'm calmed down, I'll come and talk to you. But there is no right for anybody to talk to you using abusive language. To me, that's emotional irresponsibility. The emotional outburst people have, abusive language. And something that I can't tolerate. I'm really sorry to give you this bad news. I can't tolerate foul mouth, bad language on me. No way. And I know you are very aware of that. Alhamdulillah, in the 20 years we've been married, I can tell you my wife has never ever used a single foul word on me or against me.
I actually don't use foul language. I don't think generally that.
Alhamdulillah, even out of anger, you've never sworn at me.
Yeah, I don't
in
think
20 years. I have never done that to any human being on the face of this earth ever in my life.
But I think also here that what couples need to, take care of is that it's one thing to know what you are saying. It's another thing is that the impact of your words can be two ways. You are either intentional, and I believe some people are really intentional about hurting, or unintentional. So these are the two things. Unintentionally, you have a blind spot. You don't know how you're screaming or shouting or you're sulking or whatever emotion you portray. You don't know how it
impacts on other
impact
people.
someone else. But if it's intentional, that it's
a
pure,
bigger crime.
It's pure, evil act of trying to hurt somebody either with words or sometimes even the words we don't say. It's one of those things that
silent treatment often.
Yes, we really need to be watching. I think a lot of people who have done at least a basic level of reading about emotional intelligence, we are fairly capable of actually we begin to understand how we feel, but I don't think we understand as much what the impact is on other people.
Yeah, we'll talk about the impact in more details, of course. So do you have a point about emotional responsibility? My question at the outset was, how emotionally responsible are you? Seriously.
What's your score on yourself?
I think I'm very emotionally responsible in terms of not lashing out at people. Identifying and recognizing them, I'm slowly getting better at it. Of course, it's a learning curve for me. I remember my upbringing is very important here. I was brought up in a boarding school with boys only. We didn't express emotions. Nobody taught us that. Unfortunately, we missed out. I missed out, certainly. But alhamdulillah, I've caught up, I believe, substantially. I'm still unaware of many, but I now know, and I've always been very conscious, that even if I'm angry, at my height of anger, I will not be abusive with my words or my action. Even if I'm very angry, very sad, I will not burden somebody else with my sadness. I'm aware of those things. And I'm pretty certain I've never burdened you in any way with those things in a way that would burden you more than what I would.
Not intentionally.
Unintentionally even, I've not burdened you with my sadness. When my father passed away, for example, I was grieving from inside pretty badly. But I didn't burden you with my grief, though I needed a bit of space, and you gave me that space, alhamdulillah. So that 7-8 days I needed to run around, be what I needed to be. Eventually, that space enabled me to be able to grieve over my father. So that was your contribution, but I didn't burden it for you. It's important to be aware. What about you? How do you score your own self, emotional responsibility-wise?
I think I'm very, very aware of my own emotions, maybe too aware. I spent the last 20 years studying emotions, so I think I'm very aware, but I also fall into the category of I'm never intentional about hurting, but I have blind spots when I can't see what I do to people with my behavior or emotions.
Emotional behavior, rather. Correct. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's read a few more. Aisha Begum says, Salaam alaikum.
Salam.
Thank you, Aisha. Rahma Rafiq says, I agree.
We don't know with what, but...
what we're discussing. Muhammad Rahim Khan continues, I think responsible means the quality of or state of being responsible, such as moral, legal, mental accountability, i.e. reliability, trustworthiness, something for which one is responsible. Burden has neglected what?
His responsibilities.
I don't understand that. Okay. Shahina Taif says, Assalamu alaikum. Have missed the show for a few weeks. Oh, Shahina.
I miss you too as well. I haven't seen your name.
Join us anytime whenever we are on. We're normally on either 9 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock in the evening. So my wife's preferred time is 9 in the morning. Most people are in bed on a Sunday morning. And my wife should be in bed 9 o'clock in the evening, but she's still here trying to stay awake. Inshallah, she will be with us for the next hour. Are you emotionally responsible? That's a simple question. How do you score yourself from 1 to 5? 1 being not responsible at all emotionally.
You just love these tests, don't you?
And
like
5 is you're very responsible emotionally. How emotionally responsible do you find yourself? Go on, give yourself a score. 1 to 5. Are you emotionally responsible? If you're very responsible, it's 5. And if you're not responsible at all, it's 1. Go on, people. Let's see. How do you score against emotional responsibility? You can ask your spouse. Actually, ask your spouse. Can you please help me? Can you score me? And I'll score you.
Okay, let's score each other then. You score me and I score you.
Okay, emotional responsibility.
So how do you score me?
Rahma Rafia Beg says 2. So, of course, you're on the lower end of the spectrum, Rahma Rafia Beg. Do you know what it is that you are scoring low on when it comes to emotional responsibility? If you recognize that there is a problem, in other words, you're scoring below 50%, you're at 2. Do you know what they are? Specific ones? Maybe you want to share with us and we can, of course, learn from it. Anyone else trying to score themselves on emotional responsibility? Salma Mahbub says she's 4. Well done, mashallah. Rahma Rafia Beg says getting triggered.
Oh, it's a 2 because we're going to, so it's emotion regulation. It's hard for you to regulate the response because trigger is literally when emotional regulation hasn't quite sat in the brain. So great noticing.
So obviously it's a good way of getting there. Firstly, you've realized it's a trigger, and if it's a trigger, then why don't you on a piece of paper write down the triggers? It's very easy. Said than done, I know, but write them down as much as you can. You will take a few days to write them down. What are my triggers? And then you work on them. And then you suddenly realize, I'm aware of my triggers. Once you're aware of your triggers, you're now on point 3. You're scoring 3. Once you know how to regulate those triggers, you're on point 4. There you go. You get to Salma's point. Rahma is already answered. Shahina Taib says, I had a close relative passed away. Then I got COVID. Haven't caught up with the videos yet. I'm sorry, Shahina. May Allah give you shifa. And may Allah have mercy on the close relative who has passed away. Allah have mercy on everyone's soul who have passed away. Rahma Rafia Beg says, Inshallah, thank you for answering. You're welcome. So I'm saying to Rahma as well as everybody else, if you know what your identified problem is in terms of your emotional responsibility, in the case of Rahma, she gets triggered. My point to her was, write down on a piece of paper all your triggers. What causes your trigger? And then rationalize it, try and deal with them individually. Yes, Hannah.
I was talking to a client actually 2 clients this week I was seeing, and one of them is going through a very difficult family situation, and we were discussing the details of it. And
you won't like this. Your friend Salma Mahbub says, regulation is so important. I'm working on it every day. Giving up sugar helps a lot.
Oh, wow.
My wife and I were having this conversation every day about sugar intake. I've stopped sugar. My wife is struggling with sugar.
Oh, I will never be able to stop sugar. I don't think it's not an option for me, I'm afraid.
I think Salma was reading your mind.
Probably was.
Well done, Salma. Anyway, carry on.
What was I saying? So we were talking about triggers, and really the very simple answer to this is we are triggered because we are triggerable. So it sounds very simple, but what makes us triggerable? What makes us triggerable? And I always remember this, that when I became a Muslim, I used to go to the mosque for the first time in Hungary, and I didn't know anybody, I didn't know Arabic, I didn't know anything. And there was this one lady who used to pray, and I used to watch her how to pray. I didn't know how to pray, of course. And there was something so peaceful about her. Just everything was so peaceful. Right. And I used to sit next to her. And then I went home and I was thinking, okay, well, what did the Buddhists say about this? Because I had my Buddhist past. And there was a quote, a very, very clear quote, is that the mind is like water. If it's not motionless, you will not see yourself properly in it. Everything will look distorted. The sky is distorted. There's no proper reflection. And this is how our mind should be. Our mind should be at peace. This is my definition of sakina. It should be at peace. It should be in integrity. It should be clear. It should be calm in every situation. Now, when the situation happens around us, our mind should not change. But that's the jihad of the human being, is that the minute someone cuts in front of you on the traffic, like I have road rage sometimes when I'm driving.
Confession time.
Yeah, well, I do, because when my mind is not calm, I am triggered because I'm triggerable. So actually, it's not, life is going to move constantly around us. Nothing is ever going to stop. But if our mind is constantly reacting to what's going on the outside, we will never have a calm mind.
Is that what we, okay, maybe
this is what mindfulness is.
Well, this is what dhikr of Allah does to you. Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub is supposedly, if people don't understand it, think about it very clearly. If you keep on remembering Allah, in other words, you remember Allah is present in front of you. Allah knows you. Allah is aware of you. Allah hears you. Allah knows your thoughts before you even think of them. Allah knows your actions. Allah is fully aware of everything that you're doing. That dhikr of Allah, being aware of Allah, helps you. As I was going this evening to an event, I was invited to a local event in Barking. I'm driving along, somebody suddenly stops in front of me, this guy, and then decides to pull out in front of me from the other lane without indicating. I had to do an emergency brake. My jacket and everything that was on the side flew over to the other side. And I said to myself, why did he do that? And then he just drove off. Nothing. So next junction came, I went next to him. He was oblivious of everything. He was on the phone. So I said, Astaghfirullah, and I just drove off. As soon as I said Astaghfirullah, I was no longer angry. As soon as I said Astaghfirullah to myself, Ya Allah forgive me, and I moved on, that remembrance of Allah helped me to calm down straight away. No longer was I triggered.
You remember that story? I think I shared it with you, or maybe I shared it even here. I can't remember.
Tell us.
Is it when 2 monks are walking in the mountains, and one is the teacher and the other one is the disciple, and they are walking together. And the teacher has been teaching the disciple for years, and they meditate together, they do everything together, they eat together. So they go for a walk. They decided to go from one monastery to the next, and it's a very many days of walking. And they keep walking, and they reach a river when they see two women, and one of the women can't go over the river. So the monk, the older one, the teacher, picks up the two women and takes them over to the other side. The younger one, the disciple, says nothing. They keep walking for a couple of days, and the younger one asks her, my master, I need to ask you a question. We are not allowed to touch another human, the opposite gender. Why did you do that? And the teacher said to him, I put them down on the other side of the river. You are still carrying them.
Yeah.
I really like this.
Really nice, isn't it?
I really like this story.
And I felt like that. As soon as I said astaghfirullah, I dropped it straight away. I didn't need to carry it anymore.
But that's when we become non-triggerable. Whereas this young disciple, who is trying to be so holy, like he's learning everything from the teacher. The teacher says, I put her down. You are still carrying them. And I think that's what we do in life. We carry our stuff everywhere.
And other people's stuff.
Well, mainly other people's stuff, because our stuff, we don't want to look at it. It's too painful.
We look at other people's stuff as a problem. We don't look at other people's stuff and don't understand. They have their own rationale. It's like the story of Khidr and Musa. It's also a very powerful reminder. It's a very long one, and I can't obviously tell people in more details. Rahma Beg says, beautiful reminder about dhikr, thank you. Salman Mahbub says, such a beautiful reminder about dhikr, and very true, it's very true. Rahma Beg says, wow, Henrietta, love the story. Yes, I do too. Rahma, we do carry. What is it that you're carrying?
Yeah, because that's where your trigger is actually. Whatever we are carrying, that's where the trigger is.
Rahma, it's to you, my dear sister, since you're engaging with us so directly and so beautifully. What are you carrying, Rahma? Tell us. What is it that you're carrying? I am carrying my childhood. Yes, I am. There are many triggers from my childhood that I still have to put down and forget about them. But I need to process them. I can't just throw them in the bin. They won't go away. So I have to process them. But we all carry them. We are all the baggage carriers of our history.
We are not carrying the baggage. We are the baggage.
If we can separate them, subhanallah. Rahma says, you have put me on the spot. Oh, I'm so sorry. Rahma, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I want you to think deeply. What is it that you're carrying from your childhood, from your life, from your past experiences that now enables you to be triggered and be triggerable? What can you undo? What can you put away so that is no longer a baggage that you need to carry? So now you're not triggerable anymore. Because you're not triggerable anymore, you don't get triggered. And when you don't get triggered, what happens to your emotional responsibility? Scores goes up. Immediately you go up in your numbers.
And of course, we are not doing it because of the scores. We are doing it because we want to have a better life experience. We want to have better relationships. We want more contentment and peace, when we go to sleep.
Shahina Taif says, I carry too. Shahina Taif, what are you carrying? Talk to us. Tell us, what are you carrying? Shahjan Islam Khalik says, I'm carrying anger, panic, and resentment all the time. So Shahnaz, sorry. I'm carrying anger, panic, and resentment all the time. Oops. Why are you carrying anger, panic, and resentment all the time, Shahnaz? Whose anger are they? Whose panic are they? And whose resentments are they? It's a question, isn't it? Are they really yours? Some people carry their parents' anger.
Or the mother-in-law.
Or I don't know what mother-in-law.
Or the mother. Or the father.
I don't want to single them out. Some people are carrying another nation's anger. Some people are carrying anger that doesn't belong to them but belongs to somewhere else.
Family anger. Yeah, these are all possible avenues that we pick up emotions. And one of the most important signs of emotional responsibility is to be able to say, is this my emotion or am I picking up someone else's stuff?
Today we have the best contribution from Rahma, mashallah. Rahma has answered, insecurity and not being good enough. Whoa, Rahma, mashallah. You have been so honest. Inner insecurity means you're not good enough. That's what you have said, being not good enough. Not being good enough creates inner insecurity, and inner insecurity makes the feeling of not being good enough. It's like a hamster on a wheel, constantly chasing yourself. So what are you not good enough for, Rahma? What is it that you're not good enough in? Is it your looks that you don't think you're good enough? Is it your strengths? Is it your personality, your character, your intellect? What is it that you're not good enough? Ask yourself this question. Be more specific. Let's narrow it down to the bare bone. What aspect of me is not good enough? And if you really examine it like that, you will identify the specific reason why you feel not good enough. I remember one girl who told me her father used to tell her black girl all the time as a deriding word. Oh, my black girl. Oh, my dark girl. Everybody else is so good looking. My girl, this one, Allah has given her less good look. She grew up thinking she's dark and ugly. How do you unpack that? All her life she was told that she's dark and ugly by her father.
Wow.
So she was carrying that. Not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. Nothing is good enough. Okay, let's go back to Shama Rahman. What did she say? The peace
you experience when you throw your baggage over the nearest cliff is absolutely amazing.
Which cliff did you use, Shama Rahman? I want to know the cliff.
And how big was the baggage?
Who died at the bottom? I want to know.
It must have killed someone.
Rahma says, gaining family's approval and
Yes.
dealing with comparison. That was my point. You're being compared constantly. With who? Was it a sibling? Please, Rahma, tell us. Was it a sibling that
I think you're being unfair to her. Like
No, she's being very good. Everybody's learning by this live counseling, almost live coaching. Salma is opening up, and we are trying to get her to.
You mean Rahma?
So Rahma is being open to us, and I'm here offering a way that you can all follow how to unpack it. Can you see where we have come? Rahma has narrowed it down to being compared, and I want to know compared with who. I'm going even further down. Rahma, who were you compared to? Getting family approval for what? Exactly. Tell us. Yep, I am the middle child. See, I told you, I knew this is coming, that it's a comparison with the siblings. Not good enough compared to other siblings. And yet, Rahma, look at what Allah says. I have created you in the best of forms. In other words, no human being is ugly. No human being is least of forms. No human being has any defects within them. If you believe this, you will look at yourself as worthy. Not good enough is no longer an issue. Allah made me beautiful, like that preacher Moss said. Allah made me funny. It really made me so happy when he said that. Allah made me funny. What are you going to do about it? Allah made me beautiful. What are you going to do about it? Allah made me for the way I am. Don't compare me with anybody else. Whether it is my looks, my intellect, my achievements, my money, my this. Don't compare, please. I am who I am. I'm not sure if you're following the logic, but I will inshallah open up a bit more. Shahina Taif says, if I try to throw my baggage, I'll fall with it. I think it's too heavy. Shahina, you make us laugh because of the way you've expressed it. Subhanallah. If you don't throw away those baggage, you will sink with it. Forget about you falling with it, you will sink with it. And you don't want to do that. We've got your friend Shama is writing, I'm okay. That's all that. Who is dead at the bottom of that cliff? You don't care. Oh my God, Shama. I can just imagine her saying this.
You know what? I'm just throwing it out.
Rahma Beg says, thank you. You're welcome, Rahma. It's a great pleasure to be able to learn from you and together share these insights of human psyche. What goes on in our mind when you share, half of the problem is solved. Now you know you're compared, but you're beautiful. Allah has made you perfect. You know, in Surah, which Surah is Ahsan Taqweem. So Taqweem, isn't it? Yes. ثم رددناه أسفل سافلين. And yeah, I'll come to the surah itself. Is it والتين والزيتون وطور سينين وهذا البلد الأمين لقد خلقنا الإنسان لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن تقويم. Subhanallah. And then Allah says, I've created them in أحسن تقويم, in the best of forms. In size, in shape, in color, in texture, in your looks, in your nationality, in your ethnicity, in your language, in every way possible. أحسن تقويم, in the best one.
And by the way, we are responsible for holding that up.
And feeling and believing it.
But that's what I'm saying. We are responsible for holding ourselves to this, how we were created. So those of you out there who have self-esteem issues like I had all my life and still do.
Why?
I do.
Why?
What do you want to do the same one you were doing?
Let's do it live. Why, Hannah? Why? You're beautiful, mashallah.
No, it's not about my looks. It's about a lot of other things. But it's about not being good enough for something or carry on a particular...
Today I went to a shop, right?
What did you do?
I didn't do anything. There was a guy who was very tall. And people were complaining he's too tall. But every time they need something, they call him to come and pick it up because the top shelf he can reach. So I went in and I was looking for something. He had to go to the top shelf to get it. So they said, oh, get the tall guy. And he goes to me, this guy insults me all the time for being tall. We started talking about shortness and tall height. One said I'm too short, the other one said I'm too tall. Then I said to both of them, what's the problem? Because he's too tall, he's got a problem. This kind of mindset that we hold, I'm too short, I'm too tall. Brothers and sisters, that's where it begins. It's self-belief. It's not by any other. If somebody says you're short or somebody says you're too short and you believe that, that's it.
I have another story. It's a story time. So this is exactly what happens. We know who we are when we are born. We are very clear about our emotional responses. We know what we like. But what we end up doing is we force the broccoli down the throat of a kid. The kid is telling us, I don't like broccoli. No, it's good for you, eat it. So we start lying from day one to the children. And we don't respect their worth by these kind of little things. But there's a really interesting story.
But if you're going down that route, children will never touch my vegetable.
No, I understand that, but I gave this example as an extreme.
Okay.
But there's another really interesting story I heard not recently. One of the greatest educationalists who died, he was talking about one of the famous ballet dancers, how they figured out that, he went to school and they were doing some experiments, and there was a little girl drawing at the back of the class, and they were talking about God. That was the topic. And the little girl was drawing, and the teacher went to the little girl and said, what are you doing? I'm drawing a picture of God. So, but nobody knows how God looks like. He said, they will know in a minute. So the kind of confidence and the kind of knowing our worth is a childhood story.
Yeah.
And
So-
I think the reason why we lose responsibility emotionally is because we lose our intuition and we don't trust ourselves anymore. We listen to other people. If someone says, you are short, you are ugly, you are this, you are that, you are not good enough, you're not intelligent enough, you're not this, you're not that, we will begin to believe. And we create a completely different picture of who we are as opposed to what we knew. That, okay, I may not be the most intelligent, but I'm funny, I'm this, I'm that. And people have a very deep sense of knowledge about themselves.
Do you know how many times people told me you're ugly?
I am ugly.
No, me. Do you know how many times people have told me I'm ugly?
Really?
So many times in my life when I was younger. But did I believe them? No. I thought they were losers.
Your name said otherwise.
Yeah, of course. I thought they were losers. So if people said you're ugly, I said to myself, I heard them saying they're losers. Can you see how I used to process it? When people said the queen is more powerful, in my head I used to think queen goes to the toilet. So I have trained my brain to have the antithesis of what people do to destroy my self-esteem. When one of my good friends said to me, you are a useless writer, I believed him for a few days until I said, no, I'm going to start writing. And now I write too much. Even he comments saying, my God, you're a prolific writer. If I believe in people that you can't do this, and if I believe that I can't, then I have already defeated myself. It's called becoming emotionally irresponsible.
Yeah, we are actually responsible holding to our own intuition of what we
Absolutely.
know about ourselves. And whatever people think, it's one of those really big lessons, I think, that the first way we betray ourselves is when we become irresponsible about what people say to us.
Because we fall victim of other people's whispers. Allah says in the Quran, the whispers of shaitan in Surah An-Nas, people recite this for jinns. It doesn't apply to jinns, brothers and sisters, it applies more to human. Because Allah says in the Quran about the whispers. The waswasa comes from people around you. And that waswasa is when it destroys your belief. Let's read a few more messages. Shaheen Atif says it may be too bad. It's
not a bad idea throwing them off the cliff.
Okay.
You mean the baggage, yes.
correct. And then carry on. Perhaps
writing it down on bits of paper and throwing them off the cliff helps us to be lighter rather than the baggage itself. Yes, you have. I mean, with
It's
a
a
heavy
metaphor,
baggage,
really.
yes, but with a heavy baggage, we have to really peel it and make it into sizable chunks.
But some
and
people do
deal
need
with-
to throw the big baggage, really. I'm telling you. There are people, if you go into their houses, you can't walk through because of the clutter. Literally, somebody needs to bring a truck, pick it up, and then throw the whole baggage away. It's like that. Emotional baggage can be as big as that, but also you can make them bite-sized. I have a guy who I know who was absolutely traumatized by the loss of his father at a very young age. He never accepted it. He could never get over it. Everything in his life came to a standstill. He could not progress in life. When I counseled him, I told him to write a letter to his dad and say goodbye. He wrote a letter. He went to the graveyard and read the letter to his dad, who is, of course, passed away. And then he threw the letter in the river. That was it.
He was done.
Not only was he done, he's become a prolific businessman. He made so much money. He's become successful. He messages me every now and again to say, thank you for unlocking that one thing that I was carrying, or helping me throw it away. Emotional responsibility, my brothers and sisters, begins by you recognizing what it is that you're carrying. Okay, Shahina Latif has perhaps writing it very good. Rahma says she loves the stories, no problem. Shama says, we are as our Creator made us. We are perfect in our own alhamdulillah, beautiful way. Thank you.
I think Allah created us to like cakes as well.
I think that's Shama's
impact.
Passion. She makes cakes, right?
I know she does. I think people know, but
she brought 3 birthday cakes for my birthday. Was it 2 or 3?
Two really big ones.
Beautiful ones. Shama, we have not forgotten. In fact, that because of you, I put on so much weight. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. Alhamdulillah. Rifat says, MashaAllah. May Allah bless you both. Thank you very much. Shaheen Taib, do you want to read that?
People in our society, in our culture, they are very judgmental, blunt, harsh with words. That is the issue sometimes. And a lot of the time, people have a comment for everything. If you're tall, if you're short, if you're slim, if you're fat, if you have kids, you don't have kids. If you only have one kid, if you have too many, the list goes on, and people drain you. Well, absolutely. Okay. You see, one of the things that I love about mindfulness is that first, you don't believe everything you hear, you don't believe everything you read, and you don't believe your own thoughts. Because when we believe everything that comes to us, whether it's from outside source or from our own self, we will just go around the same thing, and we build up a completely different personality, because we lose that capacity, that it's an intimacy with ourselves.
It's a perspective about you. It's not about anybody else. Intimate space for you to be enjoying your own company, to know your own self. Look at the mirror. I often say to my clients who come with lots of self-esteem difficulties or issues, look at the mirror and tell me which part of you is ugly. I actually get this as a work for my clients. Say, look at the mirror and tell me next session which part of you is ugly. They come back and they can't tell me one. I couldn't find one. So what's the problem? What is the issue? I'm believing in somebody else who told me I'm ugly. Dangerous. Okay, Shahina Taif says, people, you've already read that. Rahma says, such an outrageous thing to say. How can you call someone ugly? Wallahi, so true.
People do.
Some people do. We judge them. Once Aisha radiallahu anha, Prophet ﷺ's wife, made a derogatory comment about another woman who was short. And when the woman left, Rasulullah ﷺ said, Aisha, you've just said something very wrong. You're backbiting. No, but it's true, O Prophet of Allah. Prophet ﷺ said, oh Aisha, what you've just said with your tongue, if it was to be put on in a sea, the entire sea would be corrupted.
Wow.
And she did not even say it with her tongue. She indicated that this lady is short. Wow. That's all she did. And Prophet ﷺ said, what you did could have corrupted the entire sea. Why? Because it destroys the other person's self-esteem if they come to know about it. Impact of our behavior is unbelievable. Ruth Ruqayya says, would you say we have a responsibility to make our spouses feel loved? This can be so lacking, and it's most important emotion to share. Okay, I want to separate this. Ruth Ruqayya, your spouse does not need to be feeling loved by you first. They need to love themselves first. If I don't love myself for the way I am, the way Allah has made me, the way I have been brought up, if I have a problem with my own self-love, nobody else will be able to relate to me in the same or in a loving way at all. Because I've already put up a barrier called I don't want to be loved. I don't understand what is love. I don't know love. So anyone who gives me love, I won't recognize it. So I want to obviously say this to you. for the sake of clarity, if your spouse doesn't know what love is, your love will make no difference in their life. They need to self-love, and then couple that self-love with giving love and receiving love.
The other really dangerous thing about, wanting love from somebody else is that you become needy.
Yeah.
And nothing is going to be good enough or enough purely, because there's always something else that you want to have: more love, more affection. If you give it a little bit, you want even more, because everybody has to have a basic sense of getting okay by themselves, literally. And it doesn't mean physically being alone. What it means is that you have an emotional responsibility to be able to look after yourself first emotionally. And then if you need help, then you go to your spouse and you share. A lot of the stuff I don't share with you. And you don't share a lot of stuff with me because it's not necessary.
It's not yours, and nor is it mine.
It's not for you to fix, and it's not for me to fix.
We need to
certain
deal it
things.
ourselves.
Yes.
And the third element of this very conversation is, of course, we should share love. If I'm in a relationship and if I don't express my love to my wife, and my wife doesn't do that to me, at some stage I will feel, actually, what am I in this relationship for? So we have discussed 3 dimensions of love. Emotional responsibility requires you to self-love. Emotional responsibility requires you to separate what is yours and what is theirs. Emotional responsibility requires you to share it, of course, expressly. Prophet ﷺ said, a man said to the Prophet, I love that man. Prophet ﷺ said, MashaAllah, I love him for the sake of Allah. Did you tell him? No, go and tell him. So he went and said, I love you for the sake of Allah. What a beautiful way to express. So Ruth, in some ways it is right that you should love your husband and of course our spouses. But if you can separate them, self-love, take responsibility for love, separate what is yours and what is theirs, and of course share love. Shamsa Ahmad says, I will let go.
What? I will let him go to work and see you tomorrow.
I don't know what that is.
Not sure.
Shamsa Ahmad, this is a random, but inshallah I'm pretty certain you will explain that to us.
Or maybe we missed one part of the question, we are not sure.
Yeah, please send it to us inshallah. Rahma Rafia Beg says, we don't believe in our own thoughts. That's right. That's a tough one.
Yeah, not to believe in our own thoughts is a tough one, because actually we really need to understand where our thoughts are coming from.
Yep.
We really do.
So you are responsible not only for your own feelings, but you're also responsible for controlling your thoughts. Hang on, let me clarify this. It is impossible for human beings to control their fleeting thoughts. There are different types of thoughts. There is a thought called fleeting thought, comes and goes. It's spontaneous, and it could be something that is being triggered by things around. That's a thought that you have. But as soon as that fleeting thought comes, what you do with that thought, you're in control. And then when you generate thoughts based on that or anything else, it's also your responsibility. If you don't believe in your own capacity to regulate your thoughts, that's a big problem.
Well, we've got 70,000 thoughts a day.
Wow.
An average person has 17,000
17 or 70?
70.
70.
70,000.
Did you know that, brothers and sisters?
A day.
70,000 thoughts a day. We live 31,500 days on average if we live 75,000.
So imagine how many thoughts that is.
So do maths. 70,000 times 31,500. That's the number of thoughts you would have had in your life if you live for 75 years.
And the difference between a normal person and a great person, a remarkable person, is that the remarkable person knows how to deal with their thoughts, how to file them, what to do with them, what to act to, what to listen to, what to believe, what not to believe, what to maximize, what to minimize, what to ignore. These are all sorting processes.
I'm thinking like that. I'm thinking as you're talking, in my mind, the image is like a computer with so many slots, taking this thought, putting it there, putting it there. It's constantly filing it for me to use it in the right way. As you were talking, my brain was thinking like that. Quick, in different, and then to be able to capture them, to be able to bring them out, because you need them here, you need them there. Process your thoughts. Be responsible for your thoughts. Be responsible for your emotions, and that's how you become emotionally responsible.
Shana, 70,000 thoughts definitely sounds about right. Brilliant.
And then Shahina says, I've always been a strong person from a young age and not cared about anything people say, but now I'm just sick and tired. I do try to just stay away from people with their negativity. That's one way of surviving, which is called staying away from people. But I'm afraid you cannot become a fortress by yourself, because you'll become very lonely. So you need to learn to live with the good, the bad, and the ugly of our society. You need to obviously process those reasons why you feel sick and tired of these people, I'm sure. But there are ways, inshallah, we can discuss that. Then Shamsa Ahmed says, apologies, that last message was a mistake. Of course, that's okay, Shamsa. I find I end up carrying emotions of my kids, my spouse, and my parents.
Yes.
I end up being exhausting myself. It gets too much. Yes, it would be, because you're carrying 70,000 thoughts a day of your of your children, 70,000 thoughts of your spouse a day,
Of your own.
and of your own, and of your parents. That's what, 7 times 4 is what? 28
208. No, 2,800,000
thoughts a day.
No, 280,000. Sorry, 280,000.
280,000 thoughts a day you're carrying. Oh my God, Shamsa, subhanallah. Now, that's why we talked about earlier on, separate them. What is yours and what is theirs? Just deal with yours. They will come to you when they need to be helped. You don't need to carry their thoughts or their emotions or their feelings. Well, thank you very much for sharing that, by the way. Shahina Taif says, is that in a lifetime or in
a night?
In a day?
I think she's asking about the 70,000 thoughts. Yeah, it's a day. So
At night you have no thoughts, you're sleeping, I hope.
Well, the interesting bit about the 70,000 thoughts is that most of it we don't recognize.
Yeah.
We don't know. It just comes and goes, and it goes into the subconscious without us really knowing how it got there or what it is.
Whoever came up with that figure, 70,000?
Neuroscientists.
Did they sit there and count their own thoughts?
They had, electrodes on people's heads, and then they were counting.
Clever.
Because each time you're thinking about something in your brain fires up.
Yes, lights up.
So, when you have, if you think about your day, while you are doing something and you are thinking about something else or 500 other things that you should be doing, or your mind is not focused on the one thing that you are doing. So there is no such thing as multitasking, because when you're multitasking, you're just doing a lot of things really badly. You're not doing the stuff properly.
But you have to admit the woman can multi-think, man can't.
It doesn't mean that we do it well.
Oh, you guys just throw them in our direction.
Well, it doesn't mean we do it well. We have got so many, things going on at the
Thoughts
same
going
time.
on in our head.
But that's really is because people don't understand is that the more you carry, the less mindful you are, the more tired you become. Why? Because your brain needs glucose to process.
You mean lots of sugar?
Yes, and that's why you need high carbohydrate, sugar.
My wife's excuse.
No, literally. Have you just any of you out there, if you have seen this, that you are having a really emotionally intense experience, you crave carbs after that.
Do you?
You crave sugar.
Okay, fair enough.
Yes, you do.
Rahma Rafiq.
Please, back me up. Back me up in here.
Rahma Rafia Beg says, I think that's why it's important to do positive affirmation. The most powerful positive affirmation for a believer is to pray. You stand in prayer, Allahu Akbar, what have you just done? Fastened your hand, surrendered to Allah, and forgot about the world. That's the most powerful way of getting rid of all of those negative thoughts and all the rubbish that's been thrown in your direction, all the negativity, all the toxicity. If you truly stand in prayer. My mother used to tell me that even if a woman is not praying, she should still sit on the prayer mat every day, 5 times a day, even if she's not praying. And I now understand why she said that. She said that helped her. It will help you. One of the ways, of course, is not the only way. If you've got deeper issues, then prayer alone is not going to solve them. You need to find help, support. That's where we come in. Rahma Beg said, I think, okay, we've done that. Rahma is saying chocolate does help. Somebody's helping you.
There we go.
Shanaz says, I never knew this, but I agree. I grab a bag of sweets and finish them all. La ilaha illallah.
Okay, so there is another side of this story,
Go on then.
of the sugar story.
You've
Is
got
that
5 minutes to finish off.
it's also often is the first. Someone is just trying to advertise something.
It's all right, don't worry.
It's also the first thing. Your association with sugar could be also pacifying. And I know that when I was a child and I was upset, I always went for sugar.
Ah.
I used to hide chocolate in my cupboards. I used to have a little cupboard secretly, and when I was given chocolate, I used to put it there.
All the
At
secrets
night-
coming out now.
At night, I would wake up and I would go and have a piece of chocolate. Nobody knew, of course, until they find the wrappers in my cupboard. But there is something that people do different things. Some people go for sitcoms. Some people binge watch.
Yeah.
Some people go for shopping. Some people go for sugar.
All of these are material fixes.
So we need to know the difference. Emotional responsibility is to know the difference.
But the
Am
problem...
I eating? Let me finish.
Go for it.
Am I eating sugar because my brain needs it?
I'm contradicting you in a minute.
Or am I eating it because I want to pacify myself?
That's my point.
That's the question. And if you don't know the difference, that's the issue.
That's when you become obese or a problem with sugar, diabetes, etc. Somebody said, sit on the musalla is very important, but with snacks. Rahma, I'm super chocoholic. But truly, emotions are a spiritual part of us. If you try and give an emotion physical remedy, shopping, binge watching television, eating sugar, carbs, if you give that as the only solution, it's a problem. For an emotional problem, you need to give it the emotional touch. You need to give it spiritual touch. That's the difference. Anyway, Rahma Beg says, I turn into a dragon when I don't eat chocolate. Rahma, you are single still. Subhanallah, I'm getting worried. I turn into dragon. Just imagine when you're married, what will you turn into when your husband triggers you? I make dua, inshallah, that you don't. But it's a very powerful point. We all have dragons within ourselves. And Rahma's point I take on, if we don't know when we are turning into a dragon, who else would know?
Oh, your spouse will know for sure.
They will know the impact. They will not know that they've turned into a dragon. They will only see the ugly side of it.
Oh, I think you know when I turn into a dragon.
No, I don't. I only see the ugly side of the behavior. I only receive the impact of it. You have to be responsible for your being dragon, your dragon self. That responsibility is part of being emotionally responsible. If you want to be dragon, go ahead, but be responsible for it. It's very important. Anyway.
So the message today is be the dragon, but do responsibly.
Yeah, say I'm being a dragon right now. I need some space. Leave me alone. I can't talk right now. I can't relate to a person. I'm just going to go in the fridge and eat a lot of chocolate, but I'm being a dragon. Just say to the whole world you're being dragon. Instead of expecting the whole world to understand that you're becoming a dragon. Anyway, talked enough. It's time to advertise our books again, as we do every week.
Oh, before we do the book,
go for it.
I am doing a retreat.
Oh, wow. I know I'm not allowed.
No, you're not allowed.
It's only ladies.
No, it's not just ladies, but it's a writers. It's a writers retreat, and I'm doing it in my most favorite place in the world, in Andalusia. So if anyone is interested, let me know. I think I have 2 more places left.
Okay.
So let me know as soon as you can.
So info@barefootinstitute.com is how you communicate with us. You can obviously directly Facebook message us if you want. Hannah has got hers in Henrietta Savati is her Facebook name. My name is my name, of course, Ajmal Masroor. But barefootinstitute.com is where you need to go to get in touch with us, or directly email us info@barefootinstitute.com.
Yes, we are staying in a lovely old traditional farmhouse in the middle of beautiful 5 acres of olive grove. So if anyone is interested to unplug for a couple of days, it's a Thursday till Monday, 5th until the 9th of May, and we will be
straight after Ramadan.
So something to look forward to.
Yes, indeed. Buy our books. My book on marriage is out in the market, of course, 10 Steps to Getting Married and Staying Married. And your book?
And my book, the one I wrote in Andalusia, and I'm working on 2 more books at the moment, but this one is to do with emotional intelligence.
Please do. barefootinstitute.com. We're going to say good night and goodbye for today. If you're going to be an emotional dragon tonight, please announce it to your family before you go to sleep. But whatever it is, take responsibility for your emotions, because you are responsible for them. May Allah bless you all. Take care from me and my good wife.
Inshallah, see you next week.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And to you, Rahma,